right. Well, we're joined by 2010 Woodstock grad Mike Liedtke, who just signed with the Washington Redskins earlier this month. Mike, congratulations on that. You've been in Tampa a few years now. You're moving a little bit north.
Yeah, getting out of the hot weather for sure. But it's good. It's been a great 4 years down here in Tampa. And although this is still my home as of right now, we love it down here. And but the work took me somewhere else, so it's time for some change.
Yeah, so you bounced around for a while. You've been with some different teams: the Dolphins, the Chiefs, the Jets, the Browns. What was it like to have a little more stability down there with the Bucs for a few seasons?
Oh, it was great because a majority. I think I was on 5 teams, and within a month, I think I was on like 3 of them. So the kind of just switching so quickly. Once I was able to kind of settle in down here, that's really where my growth as a player started taking off. And it's not a surprise to me because I knew I just needed to be comfortable, and it was great. And the guys and everybody, we were like family. But that's just the nature of this league, and players come and go, coaches come and go, and there's always change occurring. There's always younger guys, and that's just kind of how it is.
What have you shown teams that that they are interested in? You keep finding work though. What have you been able to show them?
Yeah, it's the versatility that I'm able to bring. There's times where I'll line up in a practice or even a preseason game against Tennessee 2 years ago. I started the game at left tackle, and then when it was kind of time to start subbing guys around, I moved and played center. So not a lot of guys can make a transition like that, especially being center and also a tackle. That's pretty uncommon. Usually you're either like a center guard or a tackle or guard tackle. So just being able to play really all 5 positions, like at the snap of a finger, really. There's practices where I would play 4 different positions in a practice. So that they need that because it's hard to find quality guys that are able to get the job done. And if they're in a pinch, they know that they can throw me out there, and some guys would struggle at that.
And John, you missed him by about 3 years, but the funny part is Mike was a running back in high school.
Yeah.
He was like a 240-pound running back for the Blue Streaks.
Yeah.
Do you miss carrying the ball?
Oh, yeah. That was, I always think about it. It was a lot of fun back then. Yeah, it's totally different being on the offensive line. Just a whole different mindset, because we're not really getting our names called unless we screwed up. So it's different, but it was fun to be able to say I played running back when I was younger, and I would have never made it to the NFL if I would have stayed at that position. So
now you missed last year with an injury. Can you tell us a little bit about that injury and where you're at in your progress with that?
Yeah, so I injured my shoulder in OTAs last year, and we were kind of just like, all right, let's just get to the end of the season, and then we'll address it at that point. About a week into training camp, before I even got to the first preseason game, the tear got worse, and we were going to do the injection route, and the surgeon looked at my MRI and was like, yeah, you can't go. You can't play football with that. So my season was ended really before it even started. And it was tough because it was the first time in 17 years that I hadn't went through a football season. So just like experiencing life, because I had a lot of free time. I would rehab at the facility, but then I was done the rest of the day. And you don't travel with the team when you're on IR. So like life experiences that really, like people always like, oh, have you been to this place in Tampa? And I'm like, no, I'm too busy. And they're like, what? Like, how have you never heard of it? And I was like, I never had time to go out. So just, exploring stuff like that and just hanging out at home, things that really I never got to do. I got to go home for Christmas. It was the first time that I had been home for Christmas since early in my college career. And in the NFL, I had spent some Christmases sitting alone in an apartment. So to kind of be able to be back with the family and experience things like that, it was great. And it kind of let me reevaluate and put everything into perspective.
Now you get to play for a former Bears player, though, in Washington, and Ron Rivera.
Yeah.
What do you know about him, and how exciting is that for you?
I was just actually in a Zoom meeting with him this morning. We had a team meeting. It's great. He's been in Carolina at the time that I was down here in Tampa. So I kind of admired what he was doing from a distance. They had made it to the Super Bowl and they put some really good teams together in that time. And being a player, he understands it, but he's also been a coach long enough that he can do both sides, and he's so well respected. I mean, the staff, like everybody talks so highly of him, and I'm excited to meet him in person. But, I know he was back on the Bears, and that's obviously something I can talk to him about being from, the area, but it's just exciting. It's kind of the coach that I've wanted to play for a little while now.
So Mike, how did you got recruited at Western Michigan as a defensive end, and then you were there for one season, went to Illinois State. How did the offensive line, how did you evolve into that position, and who helped you out, with that?
So funny enough, I went to Illinois State my senior year just for like a camp, and they saw me and they offered me on the spot, and they actually said, "Are you sure you don't want to switch to O-line? We'll have you playing on Sundays." And I was like, "No, not a chance." But then, you fast forward 2 years, and I was leaving Western Michigan. I knew I wanted to go to Illinois State just because I loved the short time that I was there on that little camp visit. But I went through my first training camp there as a defensive lineman, and I was actually on the 2-deep rotation going into that my redshirt freshman season to play. And right around the time we were getting out of training camp, our O-line was senior heavy, but we were kind of lacking in depth, and we had some injury problems. And they asked me a bunch, like 2-3 times, and I told them, "No, I'm not switching. No, I won't switch." And then the third time they were like, "No, seriously, like you got to do this." So I agreed to it, and I tore my left shoulder, and that ended the season. So it kind of was, I guess it was good timing, but that's where it started. And I started my transition at that point, really on my redshirt sophomore season when I was coming back from that injury my freshman year, and the rest is history. It's just kind of taken off from there.
Was it ever difficult for you, being a little bit smaller, to put on that weight, or was that easy to do?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My first season I started at guard at Illinois State. I was a left guard, and I was 255 pounds. So yeah, I was small. By my junior year, I was about 285, and then my senior year was when I got to like 297, 300. Yeah, I've always struggled to hold and maintain the weight. Naturally, my body probably wants to be right around 250, so I have to force feed myself a lot and really make sure to stay on top of it, getting calories in. But yeah, it was definitely a process. As I grew up, I got stronger, and the weight just kind of naturally added.
Now, this is going to be a weird off season, obviously, for everybody, switching teams in this atmosphere and not being able to, even go to Washington, D.C. right now. What's that like, and how do you go about that process?
It's unique because going to a new team, especially, I haven't even been in the locker room. I don't know what the facilities look like, things like that. The Zoom meetings, it's hard to sit and talk with a group of guys when you don't know anything about any of them, and you've never even seen them in person, So that adds a definite challenge. But the great thing is these teams have IT departments and things like that are just so phenomenal at, getting our meetings on, because we have issues and they call them up and they figure it out. So that side is really taken off. And I know not every team is doing meetings. I know some teams are just doing phone calls here and there. It kind of depends on where you are, but we do meetings through our iPads and get plays, which is, it's good because it gets you started. But as a young guy, I feel sorry for the rookies and things like that, because it's going to be so difficult for them to get caught up and get to speed and be ready to play in that first preseason game when they've only, had a week and a half, 2 weeks of practice. It'll be tough for them.
Now, you talked about being at the right weight and being in the right conditioning. How do you do that right now?
So I'm fortunate enough that a small rehab place that I do, since they're medically related, I've been able to go in when everything is kind of closed. And then one of my former teammates, who's the starting left tackle for Tampa, Donovan Smith, he built a weight room in his house. So I go up to his house and we'll do workouts together in his gym. And he's got a pretty big yard, so we're able to run back there. And that's been great because I know a lot of guys are struggling. And it definitely was hard for the first couple of weeks when I tried to really stay in. My weight did start dropping off pretty drastically. So I definitely had to take advantage of the outside. I rode my bike to Tampa to all the way to Clearwater, which is like a 22-mile round trip. And I would do that a couple times a week just to try to stay in shape. But it was definitely an obstacle to try to find, home workouts only go so far.
Is your shoulder, or do you feel like you're pretty close to 100%?
Yeah, I feel ready to go. Luckily, I was able to fly to Pittsburgh right before the whole lockdown started to get cleared by my surgeon. And it's been, honestly, the lockdown for me has been a good thing as far as it's giving me more time to really just get my body back to where it needs to be to get ready to go through another training camp in an NFL season.
Mike, what was this journey like for you? You come out and like we were talking about, several different teams, and then you make it and you get to the NFL and you're suiting up on Sundays. What was that journey like, and what was it like once you made it?
At one end, it's a dream come true because I remember sitting in 7th grade and filling out what do you want to be when you grow up, and being embarrassed to put that I wanted to be in the NFL because, that's every little kid's dream. And, they're like, oh, yeah, sure, you're going to be in the NFL. So from that aspect, it was surreal, and like I cherish it. But then, when you get there, when you look back at what you had to go through, it really puts it all into perspective. And you realize how fortunate you are and how lucky. But it's just, yeah, it's hard to explain and put into words. It's just something that it was a great personal accomplishment for not only myself, but my family. And it just was so much hard work. When I got there, I was kind of just like, wow. I remember running out for my first like actual regular season play and just being like, wow, you finally made it. Like, it's been so long, it didn't happen my rookie year, and fortunate that it did happen, but it was definitely a process to get there for sure.
Did you go out and buy any Redskins gear?
No, I'll wait till I get up there. They do a pretty good job of giving us a lot of equipment and things like that once we're there. So I'll wait till I get up there to get anything.
It's nice to see you're still repping the Woodstock hat, right?
Yeah, I got the quarantine hair, so I've been wearing a lot of hats lately, and I got this hat 2 summers ago when I went up to talk to the high school, and it's a great hat. So, I figured I'd wear it today.
Well, that's a good segue, because I was going to ask you, you were on the last Woodstock team that made the playoffs, 2009. Yeah. What do you remember about that run? You guys got knocked out in the semis finally by a really good Montini team. I think they went ahead and won it the next week.
I think that was like they ended up winning 6 straight or something like that.
Yeah. But what was that playoff run like? What do you remember about that team? It was Logan Kunze was chucking the ball all over the place for you guys at quarterback and running back and defensive end. And what do you remember about that team?
What I remember most about that team is, well, first of all, we didn't have like phenomenal athletes. We weren't Montini, who had like 6 guys with Division I offers. I was the only guy that got recruited by a Division I school. And other than that, we had a couple guys get some smaller things, but we were just hard workers. And I remember opening the season with Prairie Ridge, they beat us. And then Cary Grove downright embarrassed us on homecoming. And that was like a rallying point. And after that, we kind of turned it on. And that's what propelled us all the way to the semifinals. But it was memorable and it was magical. I remember winning conference at Crystal Lake Central and just a downpour. It was raining sideways. And, unfortunately, it ended that Saturday in Montini. And, we always thought if we would have played them Friday night, it would have been a little bit different. But, they had their home field advantage. And we were just a group of hard workers. And, a lot of guys came back to work with the program. Kunze's back at Woodstock and Butchie Rago's back at Woodstock. So it's great to see that.
And I remember that crazy quarterfinal game. That was one of the more fun games I've ever seen. You guys and Glenbard South 44 to 55. We were just going back and forth. That was a fun game.
Yeah, what a lot of people don't know is what sealed that game. Logan ran the wrong play. we got in it was supposed to be a run to me, and Logan ended up calling it a bootleg. And I remember being like, that's not the play we were supposed to run. But, and then Scott Roush, I think, if I remember correctly, caught that long pass. And, that's how we sealed the game, was on just a fluke. But yeah, that was a great game. I remember that.
So what do you tell the high school kids? What would you say when you come back and talk to like the Woodstock team? What kind of advice can you give?
Well, first I tell them to cherish that time, because playing in college and then into the NFL, the truest form of football is high school football, because you're playing for your town, you're playing for yourselves and your friends that you've been teammates with for years. Once you get into college and the NFL, it just becomes more and more of a business, and a lot of the things that you cherish about the game change. So I tell them to just remember, and it's always great to go out winners. Nobody wants to look back and be like, yeah, we won one game my senior year. So I try to motivate them that way, but I just have them remember. It's hard for kids that age, because when I was that age, I wasn't thinking of it like that. But they're gonna look back at that time, and the harder they work now, the more stories they'll have to tell down the road.
And what would you tell kids? We always ask somebody on these interviews, since it's such a weird year and they can't go to the gym like they normally would, what advice do you have for them now, to prepare for this season in an unusual way?
Yeah, it definitely is unusual. Like when I was in high school, I would say go to the gym, right? Because we didn't have anything like this. The biggest thing I would just say is you have to stay active, whether it be, just riding your bike around the block, or going for a jog, or even just walking. You definitely can't sit and play video games and just be stagnant on the couch, because that's not going to get your body ready and in the type of shape that you need to be in. So, just like I said, I know you can't make it to the gym, but you just got to be active, and just, whether that's, like I said, just getting out for a walk or bike. Maybe you're lucky enough to have some weights at home or some rubber bands, or, make your own little home gym. But you just got to do the best with what you have, because sometimes, you don't have the nicest of everything to work with.
So why Washington? What made them the choice? Did you have other offers out there? Was it the best offer, or what was it?
Well, yeah, we were in communication with a couple teams. Washington had been interested in me since before the draft. My coming out of college, they called me, and they, I guess, put a waiver claim on me a couple years ago when I was on practice squad that didn't end up going through for whatever reason. But they were the most consistent in talking with us. That Monday after the draft, kind of right after teams were like, okay, you're cleared, you're good to go. They reached out, and they reached out pretty consistently for a couple days. And we had a couple other teams that reached out, and they just didn't show the same level of interest as Washington. And then being able to go and play with a guy like Coach Rivera, and then his O-line coach, Coach Matsko, who's really highly respected in the NFL. He's been around forever, and he's one of the best. So just when you add all those things up, it just made sense to go there.
So do you go into it as a guard, or are you somebody that can play any spot?
I'm going to go into, I'm going to go into it, and they're going to just plug me, because I've asked him, like, hey, where do you think you're going to play me? And I'm just going to be that. Where I've been my whole career is just going to be like, hey, wherever we're going to need you, you're going to need to do that. So, and I'm fine with that. I'm used to it. So I'm not 100% sure where exactly I'll start at when I'm there, but I know for a fact I'll be playing all over.
And how much of a difference you're talked about? Okay, I started playing tackle or guard in the same season, even the same game. How big of a difference is that, and what kind of different skill sets does that take between the two?
It's good. Yeah. So the three positions across the offensive line, you think it's the same thing, but they're completely different positions. When you're out at tackle, you're dealing against smaller guys that are quicker, and like you're more their 265, 270 range for some teams, depending on what style defense. But they're the fast guys that are just burners around the edge. They're going to be pretty and make their moves, and then you move into guard, and you're dealing with a 330-pound guy that's just smashing into you every single play. So guard is where it's like more physical. Like every play is just repetitive smashing again, and that's to me, guard is physically the most demanding across the offensive line. And then when you get into center, it's more mental because you have to call the defense, you have to set, you're the one that's directing everybody where to go. And then you're kind of always there to help out your guards who are dealing with those big guys. So if you're not playing a true nose team, a lot of times you're just kind of like the facilitator. So they're very different. And that's why it's so hard for a lot of guys to switch in between them. But going back to my running back days and the athleticism that I had then, that's what really helps me because I'm able to kind of switch how I need my body to work depending on where they need it to work. So that's kind of the foundation of it, I would say, is just my athleticism that I'm able to kind of carry over, even though I'm a lot bigger now than I was then.
Even since you've been in the league, it's become more of a passing league and different things have evolved. I mean, Tampa obviously had a crazy passing offense.
Yeah.
You know, regardless of who was there, you know, Ryan Fitzpatrick obviously had those insane games. Tell me about that as in terms of pass protection as opposed to run for you.
Well, I mean, pass protection is a skill set within itself, you know, because there are guys that are maulers that can just get out there and just dominate people in the run game. And then pass protections, you kind of have to have more finesse to it. And it is more of a passing league. And what we do to kind of counteract that is we don't use the same protection every time. So maybe we'll go aggressive and we'll kind of jump set you. So you're constantly guessing like, okay, are they jump setting me because it's about to be a run play, or are they jump setting me because it's a quick pass? And we have to learn different techniques to kind of evolve with the game so that we can throw them off. Because if with some of these guys, if you tell them, hey, it's a pass, it's a 7-step drop, it's good luck trying to stop these dudes because they're just freaks of nature. So you kind of have to learn ways to stop them before they're able to get started. And that's where the different techniques come in.
And you were playing on those teams when Fitzpatrick threw for those yards. And
I was playing that year. Yeah, that year, first of all, Fitzy's like one of the greatest dudes that I've ever been around. He's just so much fun to be around. I was with him in New York, but he was kind of like locked, like he was in that holdout with them. So I wasn't with him for too long. So I didn't really get to see him as much as I did in my time in Tampa. And then I was playing center for him and playing left tackle for him in the preseason. But we had a lot of fun that year. And we had a great coaching staff. You know, I loved those guys. And unfortunately, you know, they weren't able to stay. But it was, you know, it's special. You always look back and for sure that year, there's a lot of good memories.
When you switch coaches, I mean, you've had obviously a lot of different coaches, different schemes.
Mm-hmm.
Is how much of a different game is it when you go somewhere else and suddenly a different offensive coordinator?
Yeah, you know, the thing with the NFL is we all run the same plays. They're just called different things. So the schemes are this. There's only so many different plays you can run. You know, like when my time with Andy Reid, like he's great because he's able to add little gadgets to like common plays that you know not a lot of people have seen before, and so we all run the same play, so it's just different things. So the hardest thing with like new coaches is just dealing with the different types of personalities in coaching. You know, you have like your old school coaches that are just like yellers that are like, you don't need water, like just run yourself into the ground. And then you got like the new age coaches that are more like, you know, get your fruits in and, you know, get stretched and all that. So just dealing with the different personalities is the tougher part. But you know, once you're in it, especially when you're in it now, I'll be going into 6 years, you kind of understand the schemes at a different level than, especially when I was a younger player, I didn't see them the same way. So it makes it easier to pick up the different systems and things like that.
You got anything else, Joe?
No, it's been a lot of fun, Mike. Thanks for your time. It's great catching up.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys have something to report on this fall.
Right. That's what we're hoping.
I mean, it'd be tough to take. I hope so. For the kids too. I mean, if you take away a senior year of high school, you're taking away like some of my best football memories are from that senior year. So it'd be tough if they're not able to do that.